Flip or flop, guys, that is the name of the game. Today we're going to be talking about whether it makes more sense for you to buy a newer home or an older home that needs some work in a more established neighborhood. We're also going to talk about the top 5 things that you need to look at when you're buying an older home. And we're going to talk about how much you'd have to buy this house behind me for if you wanted to make a $200,000 profit off of that. Of course, when I started shooting, this guy started mowing his lawn, so let's go inside and take a look. It is a beautiful day in Austin. We're out here in Circle C Ranch on the end of an oak-lined, quiet cul-de-sac with other large, stately houses. Let's go inside and take a look at 5900 Aylford Court. Now, one of the things that greets you as soon as you enter this home is the noticeable smell, in fact, that the previous owner had a bunch of dogs in here. So we know that odors are the #1 thing that turn off a buyer and can definitely prevent people from wanting to take on a project. So as soon as you enter, you have this awesome double height foyer, curved staircase. Contributes to a very regal look. Look at that, very nice. Yeah, replacing a couple of these light fixtures, modernizing, probably painting, maybe a lighter white paint would do wonders for this. You can tell the carpet has definitely seen better days. And also this has a cracked window up front. Coming into the kitchen. The kitchen has been updated more recently than the rest of the house. Anytime you're buying an older house, you know there's going to be some work that you need to do to it, but you need to make sure that you check these 5 things to make sure you don't end up spending way more money than you're expecting to. Now, those 5 things, working our way from the outside of the house to the inside of the house, are going to be the slab and the roof, so your foundation and your roof covering, your plumbing, your electrical, and your HVAC. The reason is that any one of these items alone, if you don't know what condition it's in or when it might need replacement, could end up costing you $10,000 or $20,000 or more on top of whatever renovation budget you're expecting to have. For instance, in this house that we're in right now, we got a quote of about $16,000 to have the roof replaced. The buyers also wanted to get the HVAC replaced, which was going to total over $11,000. So that's $25,000 in items right there that if they didn't realize they needed to have addressed, would blow their construction budget up. You know you're going to be doing paint, flooring, potentially updating the kitchen, cabinetry, countertops as necessary, but none of those items are going to be nearly as expensive as those 5 items that we just talked about, which are the slab, the roof, the plumbing, the HVAC, and the electrical. Oftentimes with older homes, we know that the electrical is going to need to be updated if it's a house from the 50s or the 60s. One of the big issues that you can have with plumbing is actually if the drain line, so the line that runs underneath through the slab, is damaged. That could run you $40,000 depending on how much work needs to be done. If you need to chisel into the foundation, you need to do a whole bunch of work and replace those old drain lines. So for older houses, I always recommend getting the drain line scoped, which means a plumber comes out, sticks a fancy camera machine down into the drain line, runs it through the whole system to make sure that it isn't cracked. From the kitchen, we have a spacious living room with a gas fireplace. Let's take a look outside. You've got a pergola covering your deck. Tons of room out here. And one of the great things that, even though this house needs work, you can't beat is the fact that it is on a greenbelt right here. And the amenities are about a 5-minute walk down the street and across the greenbelt. Now, who should and who shouldn't buy a construction project versus a newer home? Well, here are a couple types of people that probably should not buy a home that needs a whole ton of work. One is going to be a first-time home buyer. If you've never owned a house before and you don't even have any experience with a newer home and the upkeep required, it's probably a better idea to buy a house that's been built in the last 5 or 10 years. Or you can buy new construction, which comes with a whole bunch of warranties, so you really don't have to worry about being out of pocket as much if you have any issues with the house. Another category that people that probably shouldn't buy a house that's going to take a whole bunch of work are people that don't have cash savings saved up. So if you're somebody that just has 3.5% or 5% for your down payment, payment and you need closing cost assistance from the sellers, it's probably not the best idea to buy a house that needs a whole ton of work, because as much as we can plan for the worst and hope for the best, invariably budgets start running up, timelines take longer than expected, and it's really important that you probably have a little bit of extra cash on hand if needed. Whew, my arm's starting to get a little sore here. A third category of people that might not want to buy a renovation project or consider it carefully are people that have a very, very tight timeline. If you're, for instance, moving from a lease or moving out of another property and have to close on one and move directly into your new home, it might be the best idea to go for something that's a little bit more turnkey. Because like we said in the last point, aside from budgets running up, timeline can run way overboard with construction that you're doing, especially if you start ripping and tearing and you realize there's a lot more work to be done to the house than expected. Now, on the flip side, who should consider buying a house that's a big construction project? Well, one really, really good category of buyers for properties like this one would be contractors or people that have experience in the construction field. They're going to know how to estimate construction costs. They're going to have good subcontractors and be able to keep an eye on the whole project. And as a whole, they'll probably have a lot more experience knowing what to do if they run into certain issues, and construction and renovation is going to take a little bit more money and elbow grease than first expected. If you're buying something, you have a surplus of cash and you don't have to move into the house now, you have a lot more flexibility. Let's go over here. Another good category of prospective buyers for a construction project like this would be people that are buying it either as a second home, have a long time to move into it, or have an abundance of cash. You're not as concerned about the construction timeline being exact. You have a little bit more flexibility, especially if you've owned a couple of homes. You know that nothing is ever quite as it seems when you get bids on a timeline or a cost to do a construction project. One of my favorite features of this house is, obviously because I'm showing it to you twice, this grand entrance, this beautiful staircase and open air foyer. Coming up, you've got your office with French doors right at the top of the landing. Great natural light. The paint's also in better condition in this room, although a lot of people would want to potentially change the color a little bit. Secondary bedroom here, I found it a little strange how low down the windows were, but they're in good condition, more good natural light. You have the third and fourth bedrooms there. You got the primary suite over here we'll check out in a second. Third into the fourth bedroom with a very interesting Jack and Jill bath, each with their own vanities, and then a shared tub and toilet room. Carpet where you got vanities that's gonna be a no from me, dog. And another look here. Look at that. Into our primary. Huge primary. The mirrored wall gives us a bit of an indicator as to its age. Guys, if you're watching up to this point, do me a huge favor, click that like button, click subscribe. It helps a ton. It helps in the algorithm. It helps get my spoon out there for more people to see. So it was much, much appreciated. Into our primary bath. This wallpaper is showing us the true age of this property. This was originally built in 1993. Probably don't need to have my heat lamp on while it's 85 degrees out right now. Big jetted jacuzzi tub, a framed in shower here. Now what a lot of people would do, if they were buying a property like this, so they'd rip all of this out and frame this whole thing in to be a large frameless walk-in shower. You can do a rain head as well as heads at the side. And great closet space. One, even larger, two. Actually, maybe it's not larger, but two big closets, separate vanities, and a really, really clean palette for somebody to go and renovate, including built-ins. here in your primary suite. Now let's look at the actual. All right, hopefully my phone doesn't get blown over again. Now, this house we had priced. All right, third time's the charm. Hopefully my phone doesn't blow over, blow off this shelf again. So let's look at some actual numbers. If you're gonna buy a house like this and you wanted to make $200,000 off of that, where you'd have to purchase it at. So this house is listed for $750,000. We saw comps moving as high as $985,000 for this property, but and those are fully renovated, super nice finishes, probably higher end than most people would be looking to put in. So I would say we use $950,000 as a rough after repair value for what you could value this property as after you renovated it. Now, when you sell, you're probably going to look at about 8% in selling costs. So we're going to multiply that by 0.92. That brings us to $874,000. Now, you're obviously not buying it as is, turning around, putting it on the market and making a profit off of it. For a property like this is about 3,400 square feet. Typically, if we were going to do an extremely in-depth renovation on an older house, we estimate it would probably take about $60 a square foot if we're not redoing electrical, major mechanical systems, or putting a new roof on, painting, replacing all flooring, et cetera, et cetera. So let's use as a rough figure $150,000. That's where most buyers that were walking through this house expected they'd be at. So we're at $874,000. We're going to subtract $150,000 off of that. We are at $724,000. This means if you wanted to make $200,000 off of this property, you would have to actually buy it at $524,000. Now, it's unrealistic that somebody is going to make a multiple six-figure profit off of a flip like this. More realistically, what you would expect is that somebody would probably offer about 30% of the ARV, which is the after repair value, less those cost of repairs, if somebody was buying it purely for the purposes of flipping. So looking at those numbers equals $560,000. So that's more realistically where a flipper would buy it at, and that's basically how people that are investors and fixing and reselling these properties full-time do their math, is they're going to offer you 70% of what the after repair value would be minus the costs of doing those repairs. Now, this property didn't sell for $560, didn't sell for $524. It's pretty windy out today. We actually listed it for $750,000 in its as-is condition, and we got 2 offers on it really fast. So it sold for a really good price. Now, the reason for this is that somebody isn't going to turn around and flip this property. Somebody is buying in this very well-established neighborhood, or we back up to the Greenbelt, we're super close to the amenity center, the pool, and all that good stuff. So somebody buys a house like this to move into, to renovate, and move into with their family because it's a really good neighborhood for owner occupants. So it was priced well to sell for people that want to be owner occupants and take on a project like this. They'll be putting about $150,000 into the renovation on this property, but then they'll be in it probably with $100,000 worth of equity in the property. So really good position to be in, to have a bunch of equity in a house in a great established neighborhood. This neighborhood, Circle C Ranch in Southwest Austin, continues to be one of the neighborhoods that's actually selling very well, as the rest of Austin is pretty darn stagnant. I hope that math helps inform you on kind of how you would look at the numbers if you're either an investor or an owner occupant in this property. You can also see how, if the current seller had made those repairs, they would probably end up with about $100,000 more in their pocket, which is why we always advise sellers it's better to do this stuff, get an inspection, make sure your house is tuned up, it's in great condition, do the cosmetic stuff. It makes a really big difference. I recorded an outro and realized I never even had my camera running. So thanks for coming through, guys. If you liked the video, smash that like button for the algorithm. Click subscribe, join me in the next one, and have a great rest of your day. See you in the next video.